They gave me the worst room on the family trip. They didn't know I owned the hotel. I decided to keep quiet and observe the annual family reunion. It was a tradition my mother insisted on maintaining, though for me, it always meant a weekend of constant comparisons and cutting remarks. This year would be no different, except that the luxurious hotel where we would stay was now my property, thanks to the inheritance my grandfather had secretly left me 6 months earlier. When I arrived at the lobby of Hotel Miramar, my heart was beating fast. I watched as my sister Lucia, the family favorite, was welcomed with hugs and smiles by everyone. No one noticed my presence until my mother saw me and frowned. She said, not bothering to hide her disappointment, "I thought you wouldn't come, Carmen." I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. I wouldn't miss our family reunion for anything in the world. My brother-in-law, Roberto, Lucia's husband, looked me up and down, evaluating my outfit as always. He commented with a mocking smile, "Seems like the graphic design business isn't so lucrative after all." If only they knew. My small company was now a respected agency with international clients, but I never bothered to correct their assumptions. What hurt me most was the secret I kept. This 5-star hotel, with its impeccable gardens and ocean view, now belonged to me. Grandfather had always seen something in me that the rest of the family ignored. My mother announced as Manager Miguel handed out the keys. We distributed the rooms. My sister and her husband received the presidential suite with an ocean view. My parents, an executive suite. My cousins, deluxe rooms. And me, she continued, "Carmen, you'll stay in room 108 on the first floor, the room next to the laundry, the smallest and noisiest room in the hotel." Everyone exchanged glances, some with shame, others with poorly disguised amusement. Miguel, the manager, seemed uncomfortable. He began, "Ma'am, we could look for another option for the young lady." But my mother interrupted him. "It's not necessary. Carmen is simple. She doesn't need luxuries." I saw how Miguel looked at me with concern. He knew who I really was, but we had agreed to keep my position as owner secret during this family reunion. I said calmly, "It's fine, Miguel. Room 108 will be perfect." I took the key and headed to the elevator, feeling my family's eyes on my back. On the way, I heard my cousin Diella whisper, "As always, Carmen settles for the leftovers." The room was exactly as I remembered. Small, with a window overlooking the service area and the constant noise of the laundry machines. I sat on the single bed and took a deep breath. I wasn't here to confront my family or to humiliate them by revealing I was the owner. I was here to understand why they treated me this way. Why, after 30 years, they still saw me as the least valuable. That night, during the welcome dinner at the hotel restaurant, my family occupied the best table. My chair was partially hidden behind a column. While everyone ordered the most expensive dishes on the menu, I ordered a simple salad. My father asked, with a mixture of mockery and pity, "Can't you afford something better, Carmen? We can treat you if you want." I replied, maintaining my dignity, "The salad is fine, thank you." The conversation revolved, as always, around Lucia's achievements, her recent promotion at the bank, her new house in the exclusive neighborhood. My mother proudly said, "Our Lucia always knew what she wanted, not like Carmen, who wasted her life with this drawing business." The head chef approached our table to personally greet the guests. Upon seeing me, he made a small bow that didn't go unnoticed. He asked respectfully, "Was the salad to your liking, Miss Carmen?" I replied, "Delicious, Antonio, thank you." My family looked at me strangely. Lucia asked, surprised, "You know the chef?" I replied vaguely, "We've crossed paths before." The truth was that I had personally hired Antonio 3 months earlier, after grandfather left me the hotel. The night progressed, and with each glass of wine, the comments directed at me became more cutting. The secret I kept was weighing on me more and more. Should I reveal the truth? What would they do if they knew that every insult, every humiliation occurred under my own roof? Miguel approached discreetly. He said quietly, "Miss Carmen, there's an urgent matter that requires your attention." Roberto mocked. What could be so urgent for Carmen? Did they run out of colored pencils? I stood up calmly, ignoring the comment. "Excuse me, I'll be back in a moment." In the private office, Miguel looked concerned. "Miss, I can't continue watching how they treat you. You're the owner of this place." I looked out the window at the dark sea. "I know, Miguel, but I need to understand something before revealing the truth. There's a family wound that's been open for a long time, and I think I'm close to discovering why my family hates me so much." I returned to the table where my family continued enjoying exclusive desserts. My cousin Javier was in the middle of a story about his recent purchase of a sports car when my Aunt Elena, always the most observant, asked me, "What did that employee want with you? Carmen, do you know him from somewhere?" I felt all eyes fix on me. I replied casually, taking a sip of water, "Just a confusion with the reservation." Lucia murmured to Roberto, loud enough for me to hear, "Typical of Carmen, always causing problems." That night, when everyone retired to their luxurious rooms, I stayed in the deserted lobby. Miguel approached with a cup of tea. He said quietly, "Your grandfather would be proud of you. Don Ernesto always knew you would be the one to best care for his legacy." I smiled melancholically. My grandfather was the only one who saw something special in me. Sometimes I wonder if he wasn't mistaken. Miguel shook his head firmly. "In the few months you've been running the hotel, you've implemented more improvements than any previous owner. The staff respects you." Don Ernesto wasn't mistaken. The next day, during the breakfast buffet, I noticed that several staff members greeted me with disguised respect. My family was too busy serving themselves the most exclusive delicacies to notice. My mother asked, looking at my plate of fruit and yogurt, "Carmen, are you only eating that? That's why you're so thin. You look sick." I replied, "I'm perfectly healthy, Mom. I simply prefer to start the day with something light." Roberto burst out laughing. "Light? Actually, economical. I bet you calculate every penny you spend." The comment provoked laughter at the table. I took a deep breath and focused on my breakfast. It wasn't the moment for revelations. The morning passed with activities, a tour of the hotel, time at the pool, massages at the spa. Of course, my parents had organized everything so that Lucia and her husband received the best treatments. For me, there were only leftovers. My mother informed me with false disappointment, "I'm sorry, but it seems there's no more space for the premium massage. You'll have to settle for the basic massage." Later, I discovered that she had deliberately canceled my reservation for the premium treatment, claiming it would be a waste on Carmen. During lunch, the conversation turned to a specific topic: grandfather Ernesto's inheritance. My mother commented, looking around nostalgically, "I'll never understand why Dad sold the hotel before dying. It was his greatest pride." My father replied, "He certainly received an irresistible offer. Too bad we never knew who bought it." Lucia sighed dramatically. "If the hotel were still ours, we could stay for free. We could even give Carmen a decent room," she added, as if she were doing me a favor. I suppressed a smile. If only they knew the truth about the inheritance and the family secret I was about to discover. That afternoon, while my parents and Lucia enjoyed a yacht tour, I slipped into my grandfather's old office, now my private office. Miguel was waiting for me with a box of documents. He said, placing the box on the table, "I've found what you asked for, Miss Carmen. These are all your grandfather's personal documents related to your family." I began reviewing letters, photographs, and diaries. Among them, I found a yellowed envelope dated 15 years ago. It contained a letter from my mother to my grandfather that left me breathless. It read, "Dad, you have to understand that Carmen isn't like us. She never was. If you continue treating her as your favorite, you'll only hurt her. She doesn't have what it takes to succeed in this family. Lucia is the one who should inherit the hotel someday." My hands were shaking. I continued reading similar correspondence over the years. letters where my own mother tried to convince grandfather that I didn't deserve his attention or his inheritance. Then, I found a handwritten note from my grandfather, never sent. "Isabel, it saddens me to see how you treat your own daughter. Carmen has a spirit and intelligence that you can't even see. Someday, all of you will realize the mistake you've made." The discovery hit me like a cold wave. It wasn't just envy or family rivalry. My own mother had systematically orchestrated my marginalization within the family. Miguel asked, concerned about my silence, "Are you all right, miss?" I replied honestly, "No, but I will be." I continued reading and discovered something even more disturbing. My father and Roberto had tried to manipulate grandfather into selling them the hotel at a reduced price shortly before his death. Their plan had failed when grandfather, suspicious of their intentions, decided to secretly leave it to me. A knock on the door interrupted my investigation. It was Daniela, my cousin. She said, looking curiously at the documents scattered on the table, "Carmen, what are you doing here? This area is only for authorized people." Miguel intervened quickly. The young lady was looking for information about the hotel's activities. Daniela didn't seem convinced. Her eyes narrowed, examining the office. "Isn't it strange that they let you into the private office? They wouldn't even let us take a look." I replied, holding her gaze, "Maybe I'm not as insignificant as everyone thinks." Something changed in her expression. For the first time, I saw a glimmer of doubt in her eyes. "You were always grandfather's favorite," she said slowly. "We all knew it, though no one would admit it." When Daniela left, I knew my secret wouldn't last much longer. The family would start to suspect, and I would have to make a decision. Continue enduring humiliations, or reveal that I, the despised Carmen, was now the owner of the empire they all coveted. That night, during the formal dinner, the storm that had been brewing since my arrival finally broke, and with it came the opportunity for revenge I never knew I wanted. The gala dinner was the central event of our family reunion. I arrived deliberately late, wearing a simple but elegant black dress that I had designed myself. My mother said irritably, "Finally you appear. We were about to order without you." I took my place at the spot they had assigned me, again the least favorable at the table. Roberto was already half drunk, bragging about his recent real estate investments. He boasted, "I bought 3 properties on the coast last month. If I play my cards right, I could even buy a hotel like this someday." Lucia smiled proudly. "My husband has business vision, unlike other family members who are content drawing logos." My father raised his glass. "To Roberto and Lucia, the true pride of this family." Everyone toasted while I kept my glass on the table. No one seemed to notice. During the first course, Daniela was watching me intensely. Finally, she spoke. "Carmen, I saw you today in the hotel's private office. You seemed very comfortable there." A sudden silence fell over the table. All eyes turned to me. My father asked, frowning, "What were you doing in restricted areas?" I took a sip of water. I was investigating some things about the hotel. My mother asked, "Why would you do that? It's not like you're going to buy one." Roberto let out a thunderous laugh. "Carmen owning a hotel? That would be funny. She can't even afford a decent room." It was then that Miguel approached our table with a bottle of exclusive champagne. He said, "Miss Carmen, the champagne you requested for your family." My mother blinked in confusion. "We didn't order any." He said, "It's complimentary." I interrupted calmly, "From me." Lucia almost choked. "From you? How could you afford a bottle that probably costs more than your monthly rent?" Miguel served the champagne while I maintained my composure. The tension at the table was palpable. I said simply, "There are many things about me you don't know." My father looked at me suspiciously. "What are you talking about, Carmen? If you have something to say, say it." I contemplated my options. I could reveal my secret now, humiliate them as they had humiliated me for years. Revenge would be served on a silver platter. But as I observed their faces, something changed inside me. I didn't want to become like them. I replied, "I just wanted to make a kind gesture, to celebrate that we're together as a family despite everything." The surprise on their faces was evident. They didn't expect generosity from me after how they had treated me. The dinner continued, but something had subtly changed. During dessert, Lucia began talking about grandfather's inheritance. I never understood why grandfather sold the hotel in secret. It was the family patrimony. I replied, looking directly at my father and Roberto, I know some would try to take advantage. Roberto jumped, suddenly defensive. What are you insinuating? Nothing, I said calmly. Just that grandfather was more astute than everyone thought. My father looked at me with a mixture of suspicion and nervousness. Carmen, if you know something about the hotel sale, you should share it with the family. I asked, now I'm part of the family? How curious. A few hours ago, I was the poor relative who didn't even deserve a decent room. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. My mother tried to change the subject, but I continued. You know, grandfather told me many things. I spent hours with him while you were busy with your important lives. He told me that a family business is like a mirror. It reflects the values of those who run it, and that you always have to be careful with deceptive appearances. Roberto slammed his fist on the table. Enough riddles. If you have something to say it clearly. At that moment, the hotel's general manager struck cable. Excuse the interruption. I just wanted to make sure everything was to your liking, especially for you, Miss Carmen. My family observed uncomfortably the preferential treatment I was receiving. Everything is perfect, Javier. Thank you, I replied with a smile. My father demanded to know, what the hell do they treat you like you're someone important? I took a deep breath. I hadn't planned to reveal my secret that night, but the situation was escalating. I had to make a decision. I replied, because they know my work. I simply respect what I do. Roberto mocked, drawing logos? I corrected him. I design corporate identity for international companies. My agency has clients on 3 continents and 30 employees. Last year, our revenue exceeded $3 million. The surprise on their faces was immediate. My mother almost dropped her glass. Lucia accused, "You're lying. If you were so successful, you would have bragged about it." I replied, "Unlike some, I don't need constant validation from others. And there's a difference between humility and allowing myself to be treated like trash." My mother asked, genuinely confused, "If you're so successful, why did you accept staying in that horrible room?" "Because I wanted to see how far you would take it," I replied honestly. "I wanted to understand if there was any limit to the contempt you feel for me." My words fell like slabs on the table. For the first time, I saw shame on some of their faces. Not on all, but it was a start. My father began, "Carmen," but I interrupted him. "I'm not finished. For years, I endured your comments, your pity and looks, your constant contempt, all because I didn't follow the path you considered appropriate, because I chose to create instead of destroy, to build instead of manipulate." My hands were shaking, but my voice remained steady. It was as if decades of silence had finally found their voice. Grandfather taught me that a person's value isn't in what they possess or the appearances they maintain, but in how they treat others. He saw something in me that you could never see, because you were too busy comparing me to your idea of success. The silence that followed was deafening. I could see emotions crossing their faces: disbelief, shame, confusion, and in some cases, the beginning of an uncomfortable realization. My father finally said, "If this is true, why did you never say anything?" I asked, "Would you have listened, or would you have found another way to minimize my achievements?" He had no answer for that. We all knew the truth. The next morning dawned with unusual clarity. I dressed carefully, choosing an ivory-tailored suit. Today would undoubtedly be an occasion none of us would forget. During breakfast, the dynamics had subtly changed. The mockery had ceased, replaced by uncomfortable silence and furtive glances. My mother was the first to try an approach. She said with a tense smile, "Carmen, dear, we didn't know your business was doing so well. You should have told us." I said, my voice calm without a trace of bitterness, "I tried, Mom, for years. Every time I mentioned a new client or an important project, you changed the subject to talk about Lucia's achievements." My father intervened, adopting a conciliatory tone. Well, the important thing is that now we know. We're proud of you, of course. Roberto, however, maintained his skepticism. $3 million in annual revenue, that's impressive, if it's true. Although revenue isn't the same as profit, of course. I replied without getting upset. My profit margin last year was 28%, after taxes. His expression transformed into a mixture of surprise and something that looked almost like respect. At 10 o'clock, Miguel approached our table. "Miss Carmen, everything is ready for the meeting you requested." My family looked at me strangely. I explained, standing up. "I organized a small presentation about the hotel's history. I thought it would interest you, considering how important it was to grandfather." We headed to the main conference room. Inside, to my surprise, wasn't just the hotel's management team, but also an older, distinguished-looking man I recognized immediately, Arturo Mendez, my grandfather's lawyer. My father asked, suddenly alarmed, "What does this mean, Carmen?" I indicated the chairs. "Please take your seats." Once everyone was seated, I positioned myself in front of them. My heart was beating fast, but my voice remained steady. "Thank you all for coming. As you know, this hotel was the crown jewel of grandfather's businesses. He built it from scratch, converting a small inn into one of the most prestigious establishments on the coast." I activated the projector. What you may not know is what really happened to the hotel after his death. My mother tensed visibly. Grandfather sold the hotel before dying. We never knew to whom. Lawyer Mendez intervened, standing beside me. "That's not entirely accurate. Don Ernesto didn't sell the hotel. He transferred it to a trust." My father repeated, frowning. "A trust? Why weren't we informed?" Mendez replied with professional coldness, "Because it wasn't relevant to you. The trust had a single beneficiary." All eyes turned to me. I could see the pieces fitting together in their minds. Lucia whispered, "It can't be." I nodded slowly. Grandfather left me the hotel. I've been the owner for 6 months. The silence that followed was absolute. The expressions ranged from disbelief to indignation. Roberto was the first to recover his voice. "This is absurd. Why would he leave you, precisely you, his most valuable possession?" I replied, looking directly at my parents, "That's an excellent question, and I think Mom might have some idea." My mother paled instantly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I found your letters, Mom. The ones you wrote to grandfather trying to convince him that I didn't deserve his attention or his inheritance." Several gasps were heard in the room. "I also found something else," I continued, signaling Miguel, who delivered a folder to each family member. "The documents confirming that Dad and Roberto tried to manipulate grandfather into selling them the hotel at a reduced price shortly before his death." My father opened the folder with trembling hands. This is taken out of context," he stammered. "No, it's not. Lawyer Mendez intervened. Don Ernesto showed me these documents. That's when he decided to modify his will and leave the hotel in trust to Carmen, the only person he trusted to preserve his legacy." Roberto stood up abruptly, his face red with anger. "This is a conspiracy. You certainly manipulated the old man or the lawyer. You don't have what it takes to run a business like this." I replied calmly, "The results suggest otherwise. In the 6 months since I took control, the hotel's revenue has increased 18%. My mother seemed genuinely confused. "If you're the owner, why did you accept staying in that horrible room? Why did you allow us to treat us like that?" It was the question I'd been waiting for. I replied, feeling emotion finally break my voice. "I needed to understand," I replied. "I needed to comprehend if you really saw me as worthless, or if there was some deeper reason for your contempt." The tears threatened to flow, but I stayed strong. And what I discovered was even more painful than I imagined. It's not that you believed I had no value. It's that you feared what would happen if others saw my value, especially grandfather. My mother lowered her gaze, unable to sustain mine. "The letters show clearly, Mom. You couldn't stand that grandfather Matlon. Why? What did I do to deserve this?" The silence that followed was broken by a muffled sob. It was my mother. She finally murmured, "You were just like him. You had the same look, the same way of seeing the world. And I was always a disappointment to him." I was never smart enough, ambitious enough. When you appeared with your creativity and determination, I saw how his eyes lit up when talking to you in a way they never did with me. The revelation fell like a bomb in the room. Decades of resentment and maternal jealousy. So you decided to make sure I never shine, I concluded. You convinced the whole family that I was less, that my dreams weren't worth it. My mother didn't deny it. She couldn't. And you, I addressed my father, you saw a business opportunity. If I stayed marginalized from the family, I wouldn't be a threat to your plans with the hotel. My father seemed to have aged 10 years in the last few minutes. It was then that I made the most important decision of all. Despite everything, I said finally, breaking the dense silence, I'm still part of this family. My words seemed to float in the air, unexpected and disconcerting. We're not here for a settling of accounts. I could have humiliated you, expelled you from the hotel, or treated you as you treated me, but that would only perpetuate the cycle of resentment that has poisoned this family for too long. My mother looked at me with red eyes, a mixture of shame and amazement on her face. When grandfather left me this hotel, I didn't completely understand why he did it. Now I know it wasn't just about the business. It was about giving us a chance to heal. I turned to them. Grandfather left something else in the trust, a letter that should be delivered to the family 6 months after I took possession of the hotel. That is today. Lawyer Mendez handed me the envelope. I opened it and read aloud. Dear family, if you are hearing these words, it means Carmen has assumed her role as owner of Hotel Miramar, and the time has come for you to know my true reasons. This hotel represents my legacy, but a legacy is not just walls and business. A legacy is also the values we transmit. For years, I watched sadly as our family fragmented. I saw the contempt for Carmen, the person who, ironically, most resembles me in spirit and vision. I left the hotel to Carmen not only because I trust her ability to manage it, but because I trust her heart to heal our family's wounds. My last wish is that you use this revelation as an opportunity to reflect and build a future where mutual respect replaces contempt. With eternal love, Ernesto. When I finished reading, several people in the room had tears in their eyes. My mother murmured, all this time competing with my own daughter. She stood slowly and approached me with a voice broken by emotion. Carmen, I don't know if you can ever forgive me. I was a terrible mother, blinded by my own insecurities. I saw in her eyes something I had never seen before, genuine recognition and deep regret. My father, meanwhile, seemed devastated. Your grandfather was right. I built my whole life trying to impress others, forgetting what really matters. Lucia remained seated, silent. Finally, she stood and walked to me. I never understood why grandfather preferred you. Now I see. While I sought his approval, you sought his wisdom. While I wanted his money, you wanted his legacy. Roberto, however, didn't seem moved. He stood abruptly. And I suppose now we should feel guilty, that we should congratulate you for inheriting an empire you didn't build? I said calmly, Roberto, the hotel is legally mine. That won't change. But what we do from here as a family depends on all of us. Lawyer Mendez cleared his throat discreetly. Actually, there's an additional codicil. Don Ernesto established that, at Carmen's discretion, she could assign minority stakes in the hotel to other family members, provided they demonstrated commitment to the values he defended. The revelation fell like a bomb. I'm not seeking servility in exchange for shares, I clarified. What grandfather wanted was genuine reconciliation. My father asked, What do you propose then? I replied, I propose that we acknowledge the truth. We're a dysfunctional family that has caused real harm to its members. The hotel will continue under my direction, but I'm willing to create a family council where everyone has a voice if you demonstrate you truly understood grandfather's message. My mother approached and took my hands in hers. I don't deserve a second chance, but if you're willing to give me one, I promise I'll do everything possible to be the mother I should have been from the beginning. That's all I ever wanted, Mom, I replied softly. Roberto remained distant. I need time to process all this, he said finally, heading to the door. Take all the time you need, I replied. The door will be open when you're ready. After Roberto left, the atmosphere in the room changed. It was as if an invisible weight had been lifted. Lucia asked, "What do we do now? How do we begin to repair so much damage?" With honesty, I replied, Grandfather used to say that family wounds only heal when they're exposed to air. My father nodded slowly. You have his wisdom, Carmen. You always have. 1 year has passed since that revealing family reunion. Hotel Miramar thrives under my direction. My relationship with my family has evolved in ways I never imagined possible. My mother and I have a weekly lunch meeting where we slowly rebuild our relationship. She no longer seeks to compete with me, but to truly know me. Lucia decided to return to university to study social work. Her transformation has been profound and genuine. My father found an unexpected purpose in the hotel's community program. Even Roberto eventually returned to ask for a job opportunity, not a free steak. He now runs the hotel's expansion department. Room 108, where they housed me that first day, has been transformed into a small museum that tells the story of the hotel and its founder. Every day, when I walk through the corridors of this hotel, I feel Grandfather's presence guiding me. I didn't choose to reveal my secret out of revenge, but for the possibility of healing it offered. And although the path hasn't been easy, the family we're building now is stronger and more authentic than the one we pretended to be. As the sign at the hotel entrance says, we don't build walls, but bridges. We don't offer rooms, but homes. That's the true secret of Hotel Miramar, and the most valuable legacy my grandfather left me.